eventful weekend, as we always come down to Tuesday, so you passed through another day already. You're doing fine as far as the week is concerned. Now, what have I got in today's Africa Speaks? Something extremely exciting in that South Africa won the World Cup, beating England, of course. If you're close to your TV circuits, we all didn't go to Japan, obviously, but won the World Cup. Now, something interesting, that the country that has won the World Cup has been, well, Mandela called it the Rainbow Nation. And there was quite a lot, xenophobia, high unemployment, you name it, it's happening in South Africa. It's all over our news. Now, the question is, will winning the World Cup unite South Africa? I've got two guests in the studio today to discuss this issue, and I do hope that they will have an insight on what is next to South Africa. One of them is not new; he's been here before, and they've done quite a lot. His name is Sembelo Sembesi, who is from Oxford and works with the Africa Diaspora Foundation. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Steve. Nice to see you again.
Okay, and Mr. Will van der Mar, a Democratic Alliance supporter who lives in London. How to pronounce your name correctly?
That's okay. It gets pronounced a lot of different ways. From anything from Vanuatu to
I pronounced it the African
to Vandermeer to Vandermeer. So
right,
I'll accept it.
The excitement of winning the World Cup is going to die down in a couple months' time.
Is it?
And yeah, it's going to die down now. we've all celebrated. We've all celebrated. We've all been happy for you. I've seen dancers around the city, even in London here. They were, I went Tottenham Court Road Station. There was a huge South African flag, and in Trafalgar Square, the embassy, there was a huge celebration in Trafalgar Square.
You've got to say we know how to celebrate, right?
Of course, with the dancing, which and the drumming, which is so colorful, and there is that level where your legs go down and you're as if you're going to fall down, and how to say it. So once that has gone down, the things that have been happening in the country, I'm looking at the political side of it. Is everything going to be okay? Is this Christmas come early and then everything once it dies down, we go back to square one? It's just a feeling that maybe can this unite the country in a way?
Do you want to go first?
I don't care. Whoever goes first.
Well, I think what's so phenomenal about this is that we've won it twice in times that we really needed it as a country. And I mean, obviously that doesn't affect everyone, but it affects, I think, for a lot of people, it brings about hope. And in 1995, it was the beginning of the coming together and having Mandela there. And that was a big call in 1995
because it happened at home. It
happened at home, but it was also representative of apartheid and of oppression. So that was actually Mandela taking an active step to the first transformation of the first step in transformation. Now you've got Siya Kolisi, who has an incredible story. He's got a story that in some ways you think could only happen in South Africa. Could someone kind of just rise to the top from very humble beginnings? So I think he represents, for a lot of people, kind of every person, kind of someone from humble beginnings that can.
You mean the captain?
And so I think that is quite powerful, because I don't know if you know about him, but he was kind of raised in a township, and sometimes he didn't have much food to eat, and he had really he said in his interview the first time he went for trials. He played in silk boxes because he couldn't afford shorts.
I was reading about him in The Guardian.
It's incredible, and now he was there, and you see all the time when he's speaking, he almost speaks more about people than rugby. And his aim is really to bring people together, and so that, I think, with the team as well, there's a lot of politics that gets involved. There's a lot of people that benefit from divisiveness in South Africa. And so he is kind of really challenging that narrative, and it's the first time that on a big scale that it's been challenged like that. I think it's the first time, at least recently, that I've seen. And there's a lot of people that don't buy into the narrative of divisiveness. That are, it just gives a moment of respite, because in social media, I think in the South African context, the discourse can be quite toxic. There's quite a lot of it's very much positional. It's very much conflicting. It's not much. It doesn't leave much. It's not very solution focused. It's very much I'm right and you're wrong.
It's tribal, isn't it?
And it's conflict, and that serves some political agendas. So I think this is, because it's not political. It's there's no other agenda.
I know. The sports has always been like that. It's sort of you all feel the same. You have one thing in common, and that is you've won it, and it makes you feel so proud to be part of that. So that brings in the momentum. But when it goes to the other ones, the politicians always fail to utilize those opportunities. Do you think so?
Yeah, my answer was gonna straight away go to that, actually. That as Will have rightfully pointed out, that we've won in '94. And in 2007. 95, sorry. Is it 95?
Yeah, 95.
And we beat England again in 2007, the World Cup, right? And then so again we win it now. But the question is, does it unite us, or will it unite us? And
the thing which I can see in this one is that because the mixture of the people, the captain being black, and then obviously in the previous periods you had I think one or two black faces in there, but this time around there were more than 6 black players in there, which also goes, if it goes to the townships and other areas, there is that element of, this is us now.
I think one thing that was also, like, just diving into the game, some of the practical things, is that also that one of the key try was scored by 2 black players, which shouldn't matter at all.
No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't
in any context. But in the South African context, that's quite powerful, because it just shows that it's not, because I think largely the government's been good at talking but not good at acting. It's been good at creating quotas everywhere but not actually building the structures to bring about change. And so there's not been much, there's been an underinvestment in actually creating opportunities, in my view. So it's always been, the quotas have always been kind of a something that's been debated. So it's brilliant that this kind of puts that to bed.
Okay. You had something, yeah?
Yeah, I was gonna say something.
I got it out of your mouth. I took it out of your mouth.
That's fine.
I took it out.
I'm a patient guy.
You're a very patient guy.
So now I was gonna say the win. It's a great win, by the way.
Of course,
very emphatic. Because I mean, if I may just start by quickly outlining how the English media, were sort of, not just the media actually, everyone, English, or most, where, even though they know the history, they know that we're powerful, we're strong, we anytime demolish them, but they went with the hype of thinking that the
English always do, right?
That's the always do, you're right.
Almost to their own detriment.
What they were saying is that the game against New Zealand actually exhausted them, because that was one of the toughest games, the semi-final.
Oh, is that what they say now?
Yeah, and then South Africa had an easy win
over
Wales.
So, really?
Yeah, it was an easy win. So
I mean, there's always you can back something up.
Definitely watching different screens, right?
No, whenever there's something, there's always going to be an extra.
That's the justification, right?
Yeah, it happened.
It's great time, great, and for me, it came just at the right time, where we really needed it as a country.
Something to...
because there's a lot, as you've rightfully said again, outlined, there's a lot going on, socially, economically, inequality, abject poverty, gender-based violence. You name it, it's happening in our country.
Everything
I'm smiling, but I'm not smiling. Under this smile,
that's why I said that could this be something as united you?
But coming back to answer your question, then, what it does this moment, it creates conducive atmosphere for good to happen or for improvement.
Okay.
Right, as you've pointed out, that there's a few African players of African descent in the Maboko squad. So just that shows you the shift, right? The change. Yeah, maybe we may debate about whether is it slow, is it going, is it fast enough and all that, but it shows a shift, right?
A big shift
to the right direction. I wouldn't got it big, but but there's a shift going on.
There is.
And then, it creates really that conducive climate for doing tangible stuff that may change, the perspective or perception of people, and that may actually maybe give people some hope of, a united South Africa, or a South Africa that can actually, give more opportunities for people to be, because. I mean, as is rightfully pointed about Kolisi, coming from very humble background, but not forgetting that he went to an elite school, though.
You did get so you got a break.
We have to be careful about those.
But that's the thing. That's part of the opportunity. I think that is obviously there is opportunity, but it means that opportunity can come.
It is, but we have to look at the nature of it as well.
Of the opportunity.
Because then, if he's gone to that school, how many kids from the township can be able to do that? You see, that's where those are the nuances that we really need to be careful about. As much as that gives hope, but at the same time, we have to be realistic about that amount of opportunities that you can get. You understand? So in a nutshell, then it's a very great time for South Africa to really make steps towards really progressing in terms of uniting a country, in terms of economically, growing, our economy. Because right now we're still under a recession, really, aren't we? We almost we're teetering on junk status. We're teetering on junk status. Our economy economic growth is at 0.5%.
I don't know if this will impact the economy. That's the thing. I also work in South Africa, and I see a very dangerous sort of phenomena going on. So I'm not too confident that we'll escape junk status. But because I think a lot of people don't know there's a lag to these sorts of things. But it's interesting what you were saying is that there are two angles to it, like why it's the impact. Because one, it shows that it gives people hope. But then also, from another angle, and I suppose this is from what I hear a lot about, is the racial conflict. And so this might be from more of a white background, but like I see the context, everything is racialized in South Africa, heavily racialized. So seeing the messages of unity on racial grounds is a respite. I think, and that's quite unifying across racial lines. And that's, I think, another area.
I wanted you being Democratic Alliance supporter. Something is going on within the Democratic Alliance, which is either well, you knew this was coming, which is either for the good, or which could transform the Democratic Alliance Party. Obviously, the resignation of the leaders of the party. What's going on within party? What could this be the main cause of this?
So I think there's a number of things. I mean, anyone who knows the Democratic Alliance will know that it sheds some support. There was a context that was created, and these are my own views. I should probably just state that. I became very aware that there's a context of politicians it started off when I joined a little while back. I was inspired by the kind of bringing together this creation of a unified party across racial lines, something for everyone. But then I suppose it became quite political. There was a lot of agendas, and so I do think that was a function of in terms of purely leadership.
Yeah.
I think Musi, who's the leader, was an incredible inspirer, an incredible leader of people externally, but as someone kind of like a rugby captain, I suppose.
Yeah.
As a Siya Kolisi, internally in the party, there was not much leadership. He outsourced that to, for example, the CEO who by the name of Paul Bowie, who I would attribute the biggest failings of the DA to.
Okay.
But the thing is, Musi then and he was because you get the parliamentary structure and then you get the political, you get the political side of the party, but then you also get the administration and the running of the party.
Yeah.
And a lot of the leadership was kind of divested slightly to that administrative sort of side. And that doesn't have an understanding of people. It showed a lot of what we were trying to do in the UK even. It was just very, very constricted. So then you saw kind of a lot of different agendas because there wasn't a kind of a strong leadership. Now, in terms of resignation, I was happy to see Bowie go, and also Jonathan Mokes, who was part of the leadership. I think James Self, who was the chairman, he also went. I think it's a time for the new those leaders, obviously, and Musi was part of that.
Could I?
Mashaba, on the other hand, I was sad to see. I was very sad to see Mashaba go because I thought that he was someone who could have who had, I suppose, more of an ear for the people, and I think that in the context of South Africa, there's a lot of conflict. So in that context, it's very difficult to stay kind of neutral.
My biggest worry is, or rather not me just, but according to the other Western media, is that maybe the changes are coming in too soon, and some people cannot accept changes as quickly as they are. For example, having him as a leader and he's a black South African, could that have been, say, the leadership coming in? It should be coming gradually. I mean, America's just had its first black president after how many years? So is that an issue as well? Because maybe
I would say
we brought in Mandela quickly, but then as the other ANC leaders have come on, there's a big struggle there. What do you think?
Myself,
it's
I think it's a strategy that has failed dismally. To sort of say.
So in other words,
for me, it's if I may put it bluntly, there's a bit of tokenistic elements in the way that Musi was elected, and some black leaders in the GA have been fronted. That's my view, though, as an outsider watching from in. But we have to understand what's going on. Really, you have to look at the nature of how post '94 GA has sort of absorbed members from other, as from other like that National Party and all that.
Which ended up in the ANC, by the way.
Some of them.
That's a very important point. That the old National Party, who were in charge in the apartheid, whereas the DA opposed apartheid and was for democracy. The National Party, that was the ruling party in apartheid, ended up in the ANC. In its final resting place, which
we can explore that later as well. But in terms of the DA, so they absorbed those kind of individuals or a group, if you like.
Okay.
And really, there's been a tussle in the DA as to obviously how what's the way to move forward in terms of appealing to the black majority black voter in South Africa, which is obviously they needed to. And so, did you want to come in on that?
I'll share my personal views. Can I share a personal view? I do agree that that's been a challenge.
And I think to finish my point then is that which was a great strategy for them. Anyway, I'm not criticizing that, but what I'm saying is that in doing that, then you have to do the inside work of now. Since you've put these people out there, then you do do the work inside in terms of uniting and actually making people feel at home, and creating that sort of reality that you seem to put as a facade.
Okay.
You understand? So I don't think that happened. As obviously the leaders who have left, i.e. the one you say you feel sorry that he left, Mashaba, who I think personally was doing a great job in his office as a mayor in Johannesburg, and he cited racial issues in the DA.
I think that was probably impacted because in the South African context, everything is so racialized, so it's very difficult to even. There's no conversations, which I think that impacted. So he was under immense stress, and he was trying to run Joburg City, and you had the EFF that were in there, and so that was compromising. So then you had some criticism of that combination with the EFF from the DA. So it was. I think it was quite a challenging. I think he was kind of at his wit's end.
Okay.
So I think it was a challenging situation.
The interesting thing though is that all this occurs with the coming back of Madam Helen Zille.
So that's I can address that.
Comes over back.
And she had said that she would, the statements on there, where she clearly says that she will get her own back, and some people say that she's done. She's won the round. So I don't know if you want to come back on that.
Yeah, well,
because we can't just address this issue and without
absolutely.
leave that, because that's the crucial part. Her coming back and then shaking things up, and then people feeling unsettled, and some feeling that now it's no longer DA quote is no longer a party.
I think
for unity in South Africa, which is said by the way by your leader, right? My money.
Really,
but I
think
it's weird.
I think that after a tussle, it's very easy for things to get personal. It's very easy to. So if you're and if there's a report that says that you haven't performed and so on, then I can imagine it's not easy to just walk away from that.
But let's come back to just a second. If we come back to the report, I can't remember what you call it, which my money sort of
commissioned
which was looked at by, if I may put it in South African context anyway, 3 white men.
But he selected them to do the report, which
it still comes back to the rest.
But it says a lot about him as well, actually, because some people on the other side are saying about.
Do you think he was a good leader?
I always thought there's a bit of a certain percentage of gullibility in him.
Do you think that he was a good leader?
Sorry, my money. Look, it just, for me, it puzzled me that a guy from Soweto, right? And it's a bit complicated, isn't it? Let's put it that way, really, because after all, we started talking about opportunities. Right? We all need opportunities.
Of course.
Right? If you get an opportunity, especially in a country like South Africa, in a context like South Africa, where there's scarce opportunities for majority black people, and maybe obviously not just black, Asian people. Obviously it goes by how where you come from as well as class as well, because that's another thing. We just most of the time we focus on race. We look at class as well. So, but
I would argue that now opportunity comes presumably if there's 2 people. You're talking about the background, but opportunity, if there's 2 people in an equal position, opportunity is favoured to the black person. heavily. I mean, you've got doctors that will not be accepted into university. I think it's unless they've got 95%.
Okay.
Based on skin color. So you have got. So I think opportunity. We've got to be careful when we talk
about black economic empowerment.
Yeah. Listen. I want to. That's one
aspect.
We can go
but in university places or kind of acceptance for.
Yeah. But then the question would be if we go by that, is that now we are how many years? 25 years, right?
Yeah.
Now, if we say that opportunity is given to the black person more than, and then we would have to look at the stats and see how
But I mean, do you disagree that's the case?
And sorry.
Do you disagree that that's the case?
On paper, that's the case. We have to be careful. And yes, to a certain extent, it is the case.
Yeah.
But now, going by looking at the context of South Africa, where all the groups are, and then you look at if you're arguing that that's the case,
I'm not arguing with it. I was just saying, is that
over
the case?
25 years, over 25 years, surely there must be a certain major change. But what we see then, what I can give you from what you're saying is that yes, there's been a growth in terms of black middle class, yes, but the whole group of black people who are in South Africa, which is a very big percentage, by the way, are left behind big time. And,
I 100% agree with you.
So that's why I'm saying that in terms of when we talk about opportunities, we need to be careful how we sort of
there's not
engage
been creating grassroots opportunities like education. Education has been hugely failed.
You're going into.
But I don't even know.
Listen, can I?
You asked me about my money, right?
Yeah.
Can I address that? Can I finish that?
Yeah, okay.
So my money. You asked me if my money was a good leader, and you did as well.
Yeah.
So I think he's a great guy. I like the guy.
Yeah.
But I think this guy's there's some naivety in him.
The question was
absolutely.
How I looked at it was this: did it come too early? Because when Julius Malema was here, and I attended a press conference, and he was asked similar questions by one of the British journalists here. And I said, look, what you're trying to do could say, for example, if you give Malema now the presidency of South Africa, the chances are he'll probably jump quickly than before he can walk. That's what Robert Mugabe did.
I mean, I would say that there would be almost civil war if Malema,
because you see,
who got in charge.
That's what Robert Mugabe tried to do that in Zimbabwe, and what happened afterwards. Because when you train people to gate certain places, there were farms which were massive in Zimbabwe. They took over these farms, but they were ill-equipped to run them. And in the end, Zimbabwe went the way it is. But what I'm saying with South Africa is I can see that South Africa is going leap by leaps. There are areas, once you've trained, once the doctors are there, they take you on, not because of your color, but because of your qualification.
Look, in terms of my manner, since we're talking about it, to answer your question, I think it came too early for him, but not for the party.
So he's right.
But okay, I think those two link. I think those two link.
They pushed him in quickly.
Because I think, and this is where I would say that.
I mean, 2015 I was elected.
I would say
2015,
that Helen Zille, when I kind of became interested, the reason why I became interested was because of Helen Zille, because she was actively seeking to understand, and I know within the context now, there's so many layers of toxicity and of perceptions, but she was actively seeking to include people and understand different people from different backgrounds. Now, she foresaw that DA if DA was going to be for everyone, you needed to have someone that people could identify with, and so it was not a. I think it's easy to see that as a token playing, but I think it was looking at moving forward. We need to kind of be a party of that. That's why, like for example, it's also.
How does that differ from?
However, did it come too early? Well, I think maybe as we've seen, it was very tough because I think Musi is a great guy, but he didn't. If I look at all my experiences, like random experiences, interacting with people, having conversations which just developed, where you're just curious. Traveling to Ghana, having different, being, the diversity of experience has been fundamental to my views. And I think Mercy was not afforded that because he was quite young, and then was put into a place where he's got this group of politicians around him. And
then pushing him in different directions.
So I think there's a lot of different things, but and then
go on, brother, sorry.
Then just skipping, and then I will pass back to you, but just skipping to Helen Zille, I think on the one hand, we've got this overall global neoliberalism and underlying kind of Marxism, which I think is a bit dangerous. And you've got that infiltrating and kind of identity politics. So what I saw is sometimes the DA was performing in that space. A little bit. Now what we should have done is should have gone, and I think, and I don't know, so before I say what we should have done, I'll say I think
that's the DAC. The DA.
I think that one, people look at it and people look at it like Helen was waiting in the wings to move in, Helen Zille. Whereas she sustained heavy abuse. A lot of it trolling, a lot of it Twitterati. And the thing is, what she was doing is she was arguing a point that she thought was rational. And it all comes down to this tweets, where she tweeted that not everything about colonialism was bad. Now, in the South African context, that was very unwise. But if you look at infrastructure, for example, then that is, so academically, what she was saying was totally reasonable. The thing is, everybody makes statements and makes decisions based on their viewpoints. She was not understanding, perhaps, of the context. And
I'm not sure academically that's reasonable. How is it reasonable?
But I mean, so for example, but it's like if I conquer a land, and there is a house there of my enemy, should I not make it my house? It's not saying that the enemy is good. It's just saying that what's there is kind of useful for me.
You make use of that.
But the thing is, in South Africa, there's a lot of meaning attached to things. So that kind of created it. And then the thing is, I think that she got, like, when someone sustains that abuse, and I think this has happened to Mashaba, for example.
I think we have to be really careful about that line, about what you just said. It's a very sensitive area, I have to say, and we have to tread very careful about how we address it. Because if we're going to compare what colonialism was doing to an African body with infrastructure,
you're going into the psychological
it
part.
becomes a very I get what you said, but I'm just trying to say that, you see, this is the problem with the epistemic.
Different viewpoints.
This is the problem with the epistemic community, because the epistemic community is the one that drives discourse. Now, and if you're talking from outside from it, it seems like you're just talking trash. Which is another problem. And then so I will speak and I will refer to so and so who's written a great a book about this and that. You understand? But ultimately, what it comes down to, why I say this is very sensitive area. We are comparing the destruction of people, humans, to infrastructure. You understand?
But
and we just cannot do that. We just can't do. And maybe we can put a full stop on that one.
Because you've raised a very interesting point. But,
it's a very emotive.
But the issue I'm looking at, when I look at it, I'm more or less looking at the direction of the party, and the direction of the party. Because look at it this way: the party was there. Now changes took place in the party, and that's why I was saying, was it too soon?
No, it wasn't too soon.
I'm seeing things. Well, if we're discussing the ANC, for example, I'm seeing what is happening in the ANC at the moment. Well, with obviously the departure of Julius Malema from there, and the departure of so many other youth wing who are saying, look, there isn't anything happening there. speaking to some of them, they say, look, this is what we hoped for. This is what because they wanted things done quickly. Now, similarly to the Democratic Alliance, in a sense that here they are, they come in, but they haven't trained the person, because I'm looking at the Africans who have joined the DA, and it had already got its policies, which were already there for years. You get the point? Now they have come in. They need either to adapt to those policies, or even the party has to change to accept them on those policies, or if not, then the most people find there's a saying in Africa that hard die hard. You know, hard things die hard. Where old habits die hard. Whereby you've had something in your hand, your grandfather says, no, but he's forgetting that we live in a modern world. I've seen that with my granddad. I have a phone, I have a computer, I have this. They didn't live in that world, but they wanted that world. That's why Chinua Achebe wrote a book called Things That Fall Apart. Because you either move with the changes that are taking place, or you're going to fall down. Now, that's what I was looking at when I was asking that question about political alliance and even the ANC. There are certain things which are not moving quickly enough, or that are slowly. There are whites who haven't accepted, for example, to be obvious. There are who haven't.
Yeah, but let's be careful. It's not just in South Africa. It's not just in South Africa.
No, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. I'm telling you.
It's a global phenomenon.
It is. So, but that's why I'm saying, have we got a way we could deal with this in some way and say, hang on a minute, I think the changes, let's go slowly to get these changes. It's affected the whole of Africa. The political leaders who took Africa, what I'm saying, in Uganda, for example, we got independence in most of these African countries. Now, Tanzania had less than 10 or 20 doctors during independence. Obviously, if they needed more doctors, they had to bring in white doctors. You know, Congo and all these other countries, even in Uganda, we had very few people who were trained at the time of independence. Now, the structure was such that these slow changes, that's why when the power came, it is misused because, look, I'm the president. What are you going to talk about me? The structure was not built by them. We wanted a European structure, but that structure...
That refers quite closely to...
You see my point. I hope you both understand my point.
Mbeki's book. Architects of Poverty, which he kind of refers to the structural changes, because you had the colonialist structures which were to extract resources. So obviously, just to put that straight, I don't agree with because the structures were to export to export raw materials. But now the thing is, then what you had is a bourgeoisie or political class that kind of replaced those structures. Replaced the people, so the people changed, but the structure remained the same.
Exactly.
And there's still that. But
can we do something about that?
Which is the situation in South Africa, by the way, right?
Well, and I'd agree with that.
It is the situation in South Africa.
Clearly, you just have to. You have to look far to see that. Look, you talk about institutions, right?
Yeah.
Okay, institutions in society. You have, like you've said, institutions, right?
Yeah, of course.
What are they for? They are legs and feet of that society, right? So then they will be structured in a way that they will support and sustain and advance that society's culture, philosophy, and all of that, right? And its people, right? So now, in terms of, you speak about decolonization or whatever, independence, put it that way. We know how it happened, right?
Yeah, of course we do.
Yeah, it was independence. You know,
I agree.
It mentions academic work. There's a plethora of it. It's out there. It was just independence. It wasn't, because it was even administered by the colonizers. They were the ones who actually organizing the new administration and all that, and training people. Yeah, but they
letting the government off the hook. Are you letting the ANC off the hook?
No, I'm coming back to that. So I'm starting with Africa, but I'm going to zoom into South Africa and explain that. So now with quickly coming back to South Africa, since it's drawing me to it. With the South African context, then we had institutions which were designed for apartheid, right? Right, and what have we done about it? zero work in terms of changing those institutions to suit a new South Africa, which will create, because part of, like we say, we have institutions which will create, which are designed according to a certain philosophy, i.e. apartheid, right? And which will then create personalities and people who will sustain that system, right? And then now, just a second. Now to change that, or maybe even change is the wrong word, to overhaul that. Then what does it mean then? It means you have to now look at the institutions and see now what kind of people do we want to create, who will then now slowly change
those
you understand? And then you will see, okay, we have to have these kind of people. And then how do we get these kind of people? It's by now, in education, creating, like just what apartheid did with the Bantu education. Basically, that's what we're doing. The Bantu education was to create a certain personality in a black body. You understand? Which will then self-perpetuate his or her own oppression. Do you understand? That was the point of creating a Bantu education under the apartheid system. It was so that then this person cannot, think for themselves properly, or they just educated to a certain point in a certain way, to see the world in a certain view, and to see themselves in a certain view, so that then they self-perpetuate that. And we still see that in many ways in South Africa. And then, but then they're coming back to the economic and political institutions. It's still the same thing. You've rightly said that there was hardly any change in terms of in the African context. Then in South Africa, it's still the same thing. The guys, it's just been a shift of personalities or races. Put it that way. Well, it's mixed anyway, but it's a shift of administrations. Basically, that's what it is.
If I can address one of those points, because in the South African context, exactly, so the structures, when people talk about the structures, it's commonly perceived, and the narrative is out there, that it's just white people that is where the blame is put, and the government actually facilitates that. Meanwhile, it's a failure to, if you look at education in a lot of cases is worse than it was in apartheid. And I mean, that is, so the government's doing a masterful job of keeping people suppressed, keeping people dependent. It's focused a lot on it's like, if you look at manufacturing sector, there's unemployment has increased. They've allowed imports, which has promoted unemployment, and there's grants, so that creates a dependency. So it's not worth having people that are educated, because they will vote you out and destroy and dismantle. So
hold on, I'm not sure.
If you look at the structures, so when people say the structures in South Africa, that immediately evokes, okay, it's this. White people all have pretty much a share in this existing structure that's apartheid. So there's a blame that in a lot of cases is there, whereas actually it's the government has had 25 years, taxes, policies, education. There's been no effort to change it.
Exactly.
And how changing it is quite a contentious thing.
Can I say something there? If change is going to happen, now the focus is also going to be on a number of things. It's going to be on money. Money is a major factor here. Which
education, healthcare.
Healthcare.
Because without that, the thing is, 25 years later, if you'd actually made an effort in educating people, so what? There's a huge contestation over universities. Why did you not spend? Why and for example, budgets. If you look at how much was lost to state capture, trillions, more than you can actually imagine. How much was spent in building new universities? Hardly anything. Probably less than security for bodyguards. So we've got to be careful of where we point the finger, because the government is a master at pointing the finger at other people.
That's where I'm coming at with my analysis of institutions, how they self-perpetuate, they create personalities which self-perpetuate their own oppression. If you get what I'm saying by that,
absolutely.
I'm basically supporting your point.
Then
the people who've gone through this education, what have they done? Because of their embedded those kind of contradictions by the system, then they come back, and they can't change the system because they. You understand? That's why. And now, like he's rightly saying, about 25 years later, this is where we find ourselves, where there's zero change in terms of bettering the institutions and the country, basically. We're basically, in a way, if you like, we've gone back. Okay. Some people are even saying the apartheid times were the better times.
There's one major point that I want us to look at, which is extremely crucial, and it's been here, and it's the point of land. Section 25 is a major issue in South Africa, and Molema and all the other South Africans have been talking about the land issue. And of course, I saw what Democratic Alliance's point is, as of, when I was reading, and what they're trying to say as far as Section 25 is concerned. Because changing it under the Constitution is a major issue now. It's a major political issue, and I think it's a
political issue.
It is a political issue, but it's also, I think, a political winner, because the ANC has failed to do something about it, and I won't be surprised during the next elections that are coming that something like that could affect the shift of power in South Africa.
You mean ANC losing the elections?
Yeah. Losing, not really losing as such, but losing a chunk majority of those who supported them. Because
not that I'm supporting ANC, by the way. I'm just looking at the realities. No, but just look at the numbers. That's all.
The chunk majority, because they have been going to 80% or 90% or something like that, the vote. But now, as the land issue is not resolved, it could even come down to 40% or 50%. They might still win. They will win. But at the end of the day, their majority is coming down. Now, how do you think the government should address this, even if it's a Democratic Alliance in office?
Well, okay, if it was, I suppose the one thing that I didn't mention earlier is I still believe that although there's been quite a lot of tussling, the Democratic Alliance is one of very few parties would institute an internal self-reflection. So I think it appears that a lot of things have been going on. I think we can watch and wait, because the people that I met when I went to Congress in 2018, it wasn't the political limelight that inspired me. It was the councillors, the people on the ground, and I actually went and spoke to a lot of different people from rural areas, activists and leaders, some people in Parliament who've got amazing stories of where they come from, and they are passionate about. They've got pride. They've got pride that you don't see with the EFF, that you don't see with the ANC. And these are black South Africans that have a pride that I have not seen. EFF's pride is not there. They are contingent on white people, and this is maybe contentious, but EFF, if there was no white people, what would EFF be shouting about? So they are very negative.
Yeah, but maybe that's another question with the ANC as well.
That's true. So the DA still does offer. And the DA is the only one that can offer.
What's your opinion on that? Because we have got less than 10 minutes to go.
Look, it's very simple.
Distributed.
It's been passed. Just go ahead with what needs to be done. And but of course it's about how do you work it? How do you prepare people for it? And how are you going to actually, when you say distribute it, what do you mean by that? Because we saw what happened in Zimbabwe.
Of course. You
understand? All those. So it's about that. It's about the house rather than whether do we not or do we not. You understand? Because obviously we know what happened, and it's there. It's the facts are there, and it's just there. So it's just go ahead and do it, really. And obviously, I don't think the DA would be able to do that.
I'll give you a couple of points after this.
That's my answer to that, actually. The land issue is very simple. I mean, it needs to go ahead.
To you, it's very simple.
To your question, you asked me what needs to happen. They need to go ahead with it and redistribute. So you have to understand the issue of the land. Obviously, as we all know, it's not just the economic part of it. Right? We identify with it. Exactly. As well. As a people.
I would argue, and you're going to have to let me, because you'll probably disagree, so you're going to have to let me finish. I would argue that that's a learned, like social media, when you watch something again and again and again, you can learn a perception. I would say that that's more, people are kind of learning. Like, when I was a teenager, when I hit 13, and I heard all this narrative that, oh, you know, teenagers are this and teenagers rebel, and so it was kind of like created a space for me, and then I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm supposed to do this. So there was 76,000 cases of land claims, like up till 2013, from 1994, that were affected. Now, 92% of the cases of those, so that's like a very real, these are real cases. It's better than a study. It's better than anything else. Real cases. 92% of them took compensation instead of land. So that speaks very much a different tone. If you look at it, it's always been possible to redistribute land. The budget on land redistribution was lower than the budget on security, personal bodyguards.
Okay.
That gives you, there's been no interest. It's a political thing to create division, because it means two different things, and it makes white people fearful because they hear chanting, go back to Europe or whatever, or you know.
So let's understand what you're saying.
The three things. There's been economic or radical economic transformation. No policies in the ANC. Nothing. Just, and it starts coming into the narrative.
I wish
and it creates
ANC supporter here.
And then you've got white monopoly capital. And the thing is, these are things that are based on historical inequalities. So there's a feeling there, but the key thing is it's not done from a perspective of creating a solution. It's done purely to create divide. Because each one of those things, radical economic transformation, white monopoly capital, which puts every white person as the reason why.
You know there's a problem with those labels, right? And we know how they came about, right? And some of them were coined in this city.
So Bell Pottinger, for example.
But anyway, just to quickly come back to the.
So land as expropriation without compensation is the third in those things that. And I don't actually believe that there was possibly ever intention, because they could have done it beforehand.
This is
they didn't need to be without compensation. This is
the problem with the ANC. How ANC, it goes back to how ANC as a party is. What is ANC? Where does it fall? And how has it progressed over years? And so you have to look at the historic facts about the ANC. For example, ANC. Pre-94 posed itself as a sort of a left party which is socialist and all that, right? Elements of it. But actually, if you listen to the leaders, Begi wrote in the 80s. He wrote extensively about how he purported capitalism. Basically, it's there. You can find it.
Okay.
You understand? But his ANC, and then Mandela. I think it was during the Rivonia trial. Yeah, he does say that he's pro-capitalist. You understand? But now we're talking about the facade again, or the way to appeal.
It's the biggest organized criminal syndicate in the world. That's
how we need to understand these things. That's how we need to understand these things, right? Because it's not just. I know we're spending too much time on race. Of course, we're talking in South African context, but there's class as well, which plays a very big role. Which is probably one of the most disappointing area when it comes to the majority black poor people, because the people who are of their color, who say the right things, who say they will go with it. And then it's easy to believe them. But actually, these people are of a different class. They have the same race, but of a different class. And then what happens is where we are.
This is why.
You understand? So we have to be careful about. But I wanted to touch quickly on the ANC, on the trajectory of the ANC, the facade of a socialist, party, this and this and that. But look at the '94 when ANC took power, right? They adopted the RDP. Redistribution program, right? Which was, maybe a bit of a socialist, redistribution of to the poor, and then, but straight away, 2 years later, they adopted the gear, which was a proper neoliberal policy. You understand? Which is a big switch from saying you're a socialist party to being a capitalist party. And then with that, add the nature of the transition.
Okay.
With so it's the ANC negotiating with the capital. So that adds the problem of them solving the issue of land.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's extremely difficult to because I'm looking at the problems, and no wonder South Africa has got a lot of problems. The problems of South Africa. We haven't even discussed Zambia.
But the thing is, to address that point is, I believe without a shadow of a doubt that the DA would have been far better. I mean, leagues. I'm talking multiple times, like exponentially better than the ANC at redistributing, because it is known that is the way to solve the country's problems. So I believe that we will see a recovering.
But how would they? Just a quick question to it. Just a quick question to it.
By investing in education, opportunities,
we've got less than 5 minutes.
redistribution of opportunities.
And it's a shame. I wanted your opinion on.
I was going to say, how does the DA?
I'm probably that's the word.
Can I just pose one question to you?
When the kid.
Why are you getting yourself together? How would the DA do what you just said they would do if they don't see color?
Xenophobia. I've got
in the context of South Africa.
Xenophobia is the word I'm looking for.
Focus on
education.
Education is going to be massively. I think it's just the narrative of using color as a weapon.
Yeah.
And that is where because that becomes such a slippery road.
I'm afraid
whereas
we've got
education,
about 2 minutes.
investing in opportunities.
Xenophobia has disappeared. The word had gone out of my mouth. I wanted xenophobia. We haven't even talked about that. Well, it's been a privilege to have both of you here. I know that it's quite a lot, and I think we probably need more than 2 hours or something like that, or even 3 to cover the entire.
Even 3 would be. We could have a lot.
The entire problems of South Africa. I just want to thank you both for coming here, and obviously, I hope that winning the World Cup will maybe solve some of the problems. You could go back to punching each other, but at the moment, I think the excitement is good, and probably some of these problems will go away, and the politician will get a few beers, get all this settled, and then have a good time. Then come back to it maybe a year later during the elections or something like that. I just want to say thank you very, very much for viewing us, and I do hope that we'll be together again next week for another edition of Africa Speaks. Thank you, and may God bless you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.